Here in Nairobi with me today are two guests, Professor Macharia Munene, Professor of History and International Relations, United States International University in Nairobi, and Irūngū Houghton, Executive Director, Amnesty International Kenya. Thanks to both of you for joining me. Now, what a day it has been. The polls have officially closed, but of course we know that they're not really over. Let me begin with Professor Munene. From your observation of this entire day, what really stood up?
What stood out was that people are reluctant to go and vote. So there appears to be general apathy in the country, and the turnout is not as high as expected. So that was something that was very clear. In the afternoon, you could go to some places and see that it's virtually empty. Mm-hmm. The clerks are waiting there for people to go and vote. But something strange has happened, from what I'm hearing. In some places, people decided to go to vote late, not in the morning. So as they were getting towards 5 o'clock, the number kept on increasing. Mm-hmm. And so there are people who are likely to be locked out because they went late. So what may need to be found out, why is it that they waited until the last minute? Where was voting in Kahazukaria, one polling station was virtually empty. Another one, people are crowding towards in the afternoon, late afternoon. So there was that kind of funny situation. It's but people are showing up late in one place, and in another they just open. And they understand it's almost a similar phenomenon across the world.
So, Irūngū, I mean, today was a public holiday, so people were given time to go and vote. What could have sort of suppressed the voting, or are we maybe kind of being selective? Could it be that actually in some voting polls, stations, there are not as many people visit, or what could be the explanation?
So I guess, Kenya, we often say that we're in the state of the permanent election. For the last year, Kenyans have been talking about elections, we've been watching elections, we've been breathing elections, and even on social media, it's been something that has occupied a lot of people. But I think the reality is that, we saw about 22.1 million people registered to vote, and that's just slightly less than 50% of the population. So a fairly large turnout by European and North American standards in terms of registration. But what was really underwhelming today was just the small numbers of people that came out. And we were seeing in some places 40%, 50% of the voters. And that's quite shocking. I mean, in 2017, we had about 75% turnout. And one would have thought, given the amount of energy that has gone into the campaigning, that we would have seen a similar number, or even as it was, I think the opinion polls stated, it was going to be somewhere in the range of 80 to 85%. And I think there could be a number of things. They could be, a lot of young people are apathetic. They didn't see really a change coming from going into the ballot box. It's also planting season, so I've heard in various places, particularly rural agricultural areas, that people went to the farms first and then came to the booths. But that doesn't explain the relatively low numbers in urban cities. So I think we are going to look at these elections quite carefully in the next few days just to see what really happened.
Yes, and Professor Munene, we already kind of had heard that younger people, especially, were fairly apathetic to these elections, and but at the same time, we saw big numbers in campaign rallies, and people thought, wow, that is an indicator that people are going to show up in a big way. But in your assessment, is there a correlation between the campaigns, the numbers we see, and the reality on election day?
There is no connection.
Yeah.
It's just optics. And rallies are entertainment. And so you have sometimes the same people appearing in a Ruto rally, the ones who are going to appear in a Raila rally. All they do is change T-shirts. So it's the same people. So, but since they're also paid, it's called mobilization. So they get, if you are a mobilizer, you ensure that the stadium is full of people. How you will ensure that is another matter. It's 100 shilling, 500 per, and so you can feed the
It's
state.
$1, $5. It's
Yeah.
more than that.
So the people come for it.
Yeah.
And once they get their money, then they go to the next rally and wear the appropriate T-shirt. So there is very little correlation between the image created in the rallies and the reality on the ground, which is another matter altogether. So people, to joyride on Irūngū's answer, people are disillusioned. The part of the reason why there is apathy.
Yeah.
They are disillusioned. They are disillusioned because they believe they have been cheated before, and that this was also going to be another campaign rally lie. And so they wonder, why should they wake up very early to go and vote for whoever, only to be disappointed by the behavior thereafter. Because people claim they have been very disappointed with those they elected. They did not deliver. So that's the factor in the apathy. They don't see the reason why.
And actually, in one of our stories, we did encounter a young lady who said, I've been lied to before. I don't want to be lied to this time around. I would rather focus on doing my businesses. But then there are those, Irūngū, who woke up very early in the morning, 4, 5, I know you did, and they went to the polling stations. But then when I went around, some told me they'd been waiting for 3 hours, 4 hours since they went there until the polls opened. Some of them ended up opening like 3, 4 hours later. Is that perhaps an explanation? Perhaps maybe some people just got disappointed and decided to go back home, or they heard that things are not going so well, and it's like, why even show up?
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of administrative hurdles. I mean, the scale of the elections, I always ask people, just imagine, what 16,000 candidates are. Ballot papers are almost like, I don't know, if Moses was carrying the 10 Commandments, they would be probably longer than his hand, But you've got also 44,000 polling stations. And unlike many places in the world, it is a digitally managed election. So there are a number of variables that are quite complicated. 16 million ballot papers, right, is what you have to manage. And I think we've seen a number of bureaucratic and administrative hitches, not only the digital kits, we call them the KIMS kits. Something like about 200 of them failed. But again, across 44,000, that's not a large number. But you did see a number of polling stations open late. And I think, there is levels of patience. But as we often tell people is that, democracy is not 5 minutes at a polling station. It is really 5 years of hard work. And I think the biggest reason perhaps is that we didn't invest enough in voter education. We haven't created a citizenry that understands how important their vote is at all these 6 levels that we vote as Kenyans.
I think instead of it, people have been left to keep losing hope, maybe from the ones that we talk to. But you see, there was a place in Kenya, a region in Kenya, which where everybody focused their eyes on, and that is the Mount Kenya region in central Kenya. It's been seen as the epicenter of Kenya's politics since the pre-colonial days. The region has produced 3 out of the Kenyan 4 presidents. And for the first time in those about 3 decades since independence, the region has not fronted has no front runner rather in this election, and but it could still play a very, very significant role in determining the outcome from what we've heard.